Hey, what is going up, guys? Today I have my 1.6 all gold build. I have a few exotics on it, mainly high-end pieces, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so for my primary weapon, I am using the Navy MP5N. I have a base damage of 20.2k, critical hit chance of 21.50. I'm running Vicious, Responsive, and Adept. I'm just running Adept right now because I can't seem to get Competent. My critical hit chance is pretty much maxed on this. I know it caps at a 60. I'm about a 55, I think it is. 49. I was mistaken there. Anyway, so I run that for my primary, and the Navy MP5 has actually become my new favorite weapon. I find myself using that more than the lightweight M4 or a Lova. I use it more than the AUG. I don't really like to use the AUG too much. I prefer the MP5. It shreds through people like nothing. No effort at all, man. And as for my secondary, I'm using a lightweight M4. Now, I could have a better Talon as my third, but let's get into it. I have a base damage of 23.1, 22% enemy armor damage. I believe the max is 23. I could be mistaken. I'm running Responsive, Vicious, and Destructive. Now, if I could have something else for Destructive, maybe like Competent or Adept, that would be nice. Or even Deadly. But for now, this is my lightweight M4 I'm using. Unfortunately, this is the one I had since 1.5, and I haven't been able to get anything better than this. So these are my two weapons I use. As my sidearm, I don't really use it, but I have it just to, you know, have a nice exotic there. That's about it. Now let's get into my chest piece. I'm using the Barrett's Bulletproof Vest. I have exotic damage resilience, health, and ammo rolled on it. It has a pretty good amount of firearms, so I ended up putting stamina mods, just in case, so I can have a little more stamina, so I'm not too squishy, and my survivability is pretty good. And now for my mask, I'm using the Rehabilitated. I have a very good firearms roll on it. 4% critical hit chance. I rolled it for damage to elites. Just because if I'm playing Last Stand or if I'm doing PvE stuff, whether it's an incursion or legendary mission, whatever it might be, at least that way I can still do decent damage to, you know, elites. Now, I can reroll that easily if I wanted to for Last Stand mode, for something a little more useful, but it's done me right. And the reason I use Rehabilitate is because I find myself, anytime I'm in Last Stand, a lot of people like to use shock turrets, flame turrets, and also they like to use the Seekers with the airburst. So if I happen to run into that, at least I'm able to get healed somewhat, you know, and not be totally stuck in place losing all my health at one time, where at least I'm getting some sort of health back. Now, a lot of people rather use Tenacious, or occasionally I'll use my the Pharaoh's Oxygen Mask, but I mainly find myself using the Rehabilitated Mask. It's my preference, you know, you can go with something different here. You know, this is just what I prefer to use. For my knee pads, of course, short bow knee pads. You can't go wrong here. If I remember correctly, yeah, okay, so I did get a pretty good stamina roll on it, but that's because I had a roll for it. It came with electronics, so I rolled for stamina. And I ended up putting stamina mod on it as well, so I could have more toughness. You know, I don't want to be completely at the bottom with toughness and just get melted by a player very quickly. So I run that. I have health rolled on it, damage to elites, increased kill XP, and disorient resistance. Now, the minor attributes could definitely be better. I'm happy with the health roll for the major attribute. That is something I would definitely want for my personal build. That's about it. The minor attributes definitely could be better. I could definitely have some like shock resistance or flame resistance, you know, stuff like that. But it's okay for now. Now, as for my backpack, of course I'm going to be using the specialized book bag. Now, I got lucky with this one. I actually bought this one in 1.5. One of the vendors was selling it, and I saw it. I had to buy it. This is the only specialized book bag I've been using since. Haven't been able to get anything better than this as far as the health roll goes and as far as the ammo capacity. I like to have ammo capacity as the minor attribute on my book bag. Now, I have firearms mod onto this one. and my firearms mod does have health as one of the attributes. So that's my book bag right there. And now for the gloves, of course, I'm going to be using the Skull MC gloves. I have two pairs that I switch back and forth between. These ones, they came with a pretty low firearms roll, so I had to roll it for better firearms. Even though once I'm in Last Stand, it does min-max it, so... but I like to use these also outside of Last Stand in case, I'm in PvE or if I go in the Dark Zone. Now, the only thing I would wish these gloves had, instead of the enemy armor damage, was critical hit chance. Other than that, I'm actually very happy with the rolls. I love some skill haste. I have skill haste on my gloves. I need at least one thing with skill haste, because in 1.6, you need that little extra to help get your skills back, since the heals are pretty shitty and you want to be able to get off as much as you can if you're in the middle of a battle. So they have the 1259 firearms, 8% skill haste, 7% enemy armor damage, which again I wish it was rolled for critical hit chance. And then I got 16% critical hit damage, which is very good for the damage part. My other ones, which I switch between of pretty low armor. The firearms isn't too bad, and it's got 15% critical hit damage and a 5.5% critical hit chance with a 1239 assault rifle damage. Now these are good. I haven't really found myself using the assault rifle as much. I only switch to my lightweight M4 if I'm in the middle of like a 1v1 and my MP5 is out of bullets or whatever the case is. I don't want to reload and I see the guy is low health. I'll just switch to my lightweight and just shoot him up really fast to get that little bit of damage in before I have to reload. So that's why I haven't been really using these gloves, but I'll switch back and forth between these two. Now for my holster, of course I'm going to be using Nimble. Nimble is a must in Last Stand, at least that's the way I see it. Comes in handy very much. The armor roll isn't too good, but once I'm in Last Stand, it's it's a different story. It gets put to 1400. Now I was able to get a very good firearms roll on this. Stamina is great. Electronics should definitely be better, and it came with 8,000 health, which is that's great as well. So now I can have more toughness. These ones I use as well, they come with critical hit chance. So sometimes I'll switch between these two depending on if I want to have that little bit more of critical hit chance for my submachine gun or for my lightweight M4. As far as the talents I'm using and the skills, I'm using the Recon Pack just because it is a little bit better than the Scrambler and also the Tactical Scanner. As you can see, the Recon Pack does 1% more than the rest of them, and it also comes back much quicker, so that helps a lot once you're in Last Stand or whatever scenario you're trying to do. Scrambler is great, of course, if you're going to Dark Zone and you want to go rogue or you're trying to chase rogues, whatever the case might be. It's great for Dark Zone, but I prefer a little bit more chance and some damage, and of course the cooldown is much faster. I always use Booster Shot. I've never found myself not using it for my damage builds. But this is all personal preference here. I prefer Booster Shot just because it'll give me more damage, more toughness. Overdose is nice. You get a lot of health, and if you're at 2 bars, you can get that overshield, which is nice as well. But personally, I'm gonna use Booster Shot. Now, as far as your super goes, this is your personal choice. Depending on what my team has, I'll either use what I feel is best needed. And then for talents, I'm using Combat Medic, which is a must. You want to be able to support your team, even though you're doing you might be a damage, or you're doing you're trying to tank, or your electronics, whatever the case is. You always want to try to support your team any way you can. Strike Back, I find that very helpful. Some people will say they don't like it, but me, I'm gonna stick by Strike Back. I like it. It helps me out a lot, believe it or not. And I'm using Steady Hands. That comes in handy. I don't find myself using it too much. I always forget that I do have it on, but I'll either switch between Steady Hands or Battle Buddy. And then for my final talent, One is None. This is possibly the best talent. You can't go wrong. If, let's just say, my MP5 has 68 in the mag, 67, whatever it might be, and I'm just getting steady headshots, you know, I'll be shooting off 100 for the clip instead of having that original 67, 68, you know, and that does help out if you're in the middle of a battle or if you're fighting NPCs, you know, whatever scenario you're doing, you know, one is none comes in handy a lot. So that's definitely talent I recommend, you know, if you're not using or you never used it, definitely switch to this, use it. It comes in handy and it will definitely put out that extra that you need. And that is about it, guys. That wraps up my build right here for 1.6, the old gold slashed name gear exotics. If you have any questions, feel free to comment in the section below, and I will answer anything you have. See you guys next time.